What's going on, JP Football Fanatics fans? It's your boy, JP Football Fanatics, back with you once again with another live stream video. Before I get into the specifics of everything, I just want to really thank you all for all your patience for these last couple of weeks. I can't really go into explain of how busy my life has been for the last couple of weeks. I know the last time I was on stream was about 3 weeks ago, covering about my Dalvin Cook landing spot to where he could be because of his ability of being able to be a free agent and signing wherever he wants to. So my life's been very crazy and everything like that as far as like jobs go and everything like that. It's summertime, a lot of stuff happening and events, special events that I'm trying to attend to and everything. So just thank you for your time and your patience and being able to really be able to help out and be able to be patient with everything as I am about to go into this new live stream here. So thank you so much for that. So for tonight, everybody, we know the NFL season, we're about little less than a month away, I guess you could say, from like the preseason, and then we got another month after that for the regular season. So we do have a little bit of time before football does start, but honestly, at the same time, though, we're here to talk about what's going on right now, and that is to talk about some of the teams that I feel like are going to be pretty underrated this year. Originally, my idea was I was going to do the top five most underrated teams in 2023, but I decided, you know what? There's actually quite a few teams this year that I feel like are flying under the radar a little bit and could potentially be a dark horse or make some noise when it comes to playoff season and probably even during the regular season too. So a lot of things going on there. So this is really going to really identify like some of the teams that I feel like are gonna maybe not necessarily be breakout teams, but teams that could really make some noise. Going into this season. So if that all sounds good, please do me the favor, everybody. Please do me a favor and go ahead and drop a like on this video if you have not done so already. As you see in the new graphic that I just updated for the upcoming year and so on and so forth. So that way I can keep updating my graphics and everything like that and VideoWare and everything. So please drop a like on this video if you have not done so already. And please leave a comment down below too. I know that, you guys really enjoy the content and I really enjoy feedback as well. So, when I was doing my record predictions and I was just reading so much of the feedback that I was getting and everything from everybody, and it really just means a lot because it tells me that I'm doing something right, or some people may call me out for something that they don't necessarily agree with. So, just to go ahead and please drop a like on this video and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys would like me to cover during the off season. Before we reach to the post the preseason as well, because as the preseason does come along and regular season comes along, I want to be able to be accurate and be able to talk about some things that I feel like are going to really make a big impact during the season. So go ahead, drop a like on this video, leave some comments down below, and if you've not done so already, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell as well. So with that all being said, we'll get started. So thank you again for everybody for tuning in. It really does mean a lot. We did have about 3 people that were in here at one point. Let's try to build it up, guys. Okay, I really want to continue to try to build this up. I want this YouTube channel to work out. I want you guys to be able to really trust me on everything that I do cover and everything. So thank you for that. Thank you for your continued support. So let's go ahead. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get started. So I decided, like I said, I'm not really exactly doing like my top 5 because I feel like there's a lot of teams in here that are pretty underrated this year that I feel like could potentially make some noise during this season and everything like that. And I really want to really be able to explain a little bit about each of these teams that I did come up with. I came up with 5 teams from the NFC and 5 teams on the AFC, and they're all going to be in alphabetical order because it's just easier for me to really keep in contact with and be able to organize a little bit more. So we'll get started with the very first team that had a pretty good offseason so far, at least. Still a little bit early, but they had a nice offseason so far, a pretty good draft too. I think this is a team that's going to be, really trying to get themselves really keep going in the future. And that team is none other than the Atlanta Falcons. So the Atlanta Falcons for this particular season, as I pull off the one graphic there, sorry about that. So the Atlanta Falcons are a team that I feel like are a team that's going to be really, I think this is a team that I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on. I am not really the biggest fan of Desmond Ritter, if that really does make a lot of sense. But what I do like about this team is I like Arthur Smith's play calling. I like him as a head coach a lot. I really do believe that he is what makes this team keep themselves relevant, if that really does make sense. I mean, look at what they've done in the offseason. They picked up a lot of good players. Their defense, I think, is going to be better than it's been in years previous. And I think they're going to be at least in the top 20 this year on defense with getting Calais Campbell from Baltimore. That's really a big difference maker there, too. You still got A.J. Terrell as your corner, probably your best corner that you have here. There's still a couple spots on defense that they could really try to fix up a little bit more. But other than that, really, I think this is a defense and their pass rush will be better than it's been in quite some time. At least as long as I've been following football, at least I think it will be one of the better ones that I've seen from this particular team. And as far as the offense goes, with getting Bijan Robinson, going to be splitting a lot of time. I think we're going to see a lot of him and Tyler Algier. We're going to see this team be like a run heavy. They're going to be very similar to what most people think, and I kind of agree with them. This is going to be a very similar team to what the Tennessee Titans were, and a lot of that is because of Arthur Smith. He loves to run the ball, as we saw from last season. I don't know if he's quite into Desmond Ritter. I don't know if he exactly trusts him in the passing game yet. I think he's still very immature and very sluggish when it comes to the passing game. I think he still has a lot of things to work on, especially mechanically and becoming a better pocket passer. But other than that, really, I mean, you could really run the ball with this team and still win a lot of games. And that's something that Arthur Smith has been able to do time and time again. Each of the last of his 2 years, he's won an average between 8 to 7 games in those 2 seasons. And I think that can definitely be the case in a very, very weak NFC South division. This team, along with Carolina and New Orleans, Atlanta could definitely be that team that really competes with those 2 particular teams for a division title. So the Atlanta Falcons, everybody, they're a team that I would definitely not sleep on because I think they could definitely be a lot better than what people are really talking about them at this point in time. So, um, yeah, that's what I think about that. Next, we've got the Carolina Panthers as another team from the NFC South. The Carolina Panthers got their number 1 overall pick in Bryce Young. A-plus pick right there. Something that the Panthers really needed. They're like the Colts, have been in a quarterback carousel for a long time with going from Cam Newton, and after Cam Newton, you're going from Kyle Allen, then you go to Teddy Bridgewater, then you got to go from to Sam Darnold, and then back to Cam Newton, and PJ Walker made some appearances here and there, and then you go to Baker Mayfield, that doesn't work out, then you go back to PJ Walker, then you go back to Sam Darnold. So the team has definitely been in a mess in terms of quarterback for quite a while since Cam Newton's departure from the team. However, Bryce Young and getting the mentor of Andy Dalton, I think this team is definitely going to be poised for having some better years within the next couple of years. They've also picked up they have a mix of veteran and young players on this particular team. Adam Thielen they got from Minnesota. They signed him to I think it was a 2-year deal, a 2-year deal or something like that, I believe. But this team is young, a mix of young and veterans. They're young, they're hungry, and I think they're a team that has every opportunity that they can to win the division. Do I think they're going to win the division right out of the gates with Bryce Young, who very likely will be starting in week 1? Probably not. I still think the Saints are slightly better than them in terms of quarterback. I think Derek Carr is a good quarterback for them, which we'll talk about them in a little bit. I think they have a pretty underrated team as well. But the Panthers are a team that's on both sides of the ball offensively. Their offensive line is suspect. It's solid, but also I do have some questions, and there are some holes in the offensive line that needs to be improved upon. And really, is Bryce Young really ready to step up to the big game? And that's really what it's going to come down to. I think Bryce Young is going to have a good career, but as far as his rookie season goes, based off of what reports are saying in OTAs and everything like that too, he's definitely taking some lumps as a rookie, But I think in the long run, I think he's going to have a nice career like CJ Stroud. I think he's going to have a nice career. He'll get himself going and acclimated into this team. Frank Reich will do everything that he can to keep this team competitive, especially in the division that's very weak. And I think they're a competitor all around, really. I think their schedule is pretty nice for the most part. I think they could definitely win up to 8 to 9, maybe even 10 wins, maybe, but that's probably being a bit too optimistic. But this Panthers team is definitely a team that is definitely on the uprise. I like a lot of the upside that this team does have. I think they upgraded on coaching, which was definitely a big plus there too. We'll see how that goes with Ben McAdoo as the offensive coordinator. We'll see how Frank Reich and him get along there. But I think this team is definitely going to be a team to really watch for the future. And I think it will be really fun to see them actually upset some teams this year, because I think this is the team and you have the coach that can definitely do that. The next team are the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Browns were a team that a couple of years ago under Baker Mayfield, in the 2020 season, they made their very first playoff appearance in like 20 years almost, knocked off the Steelers in the wild card round, and then they lost in the divisional round, and they almost beat the Kansas City Chiefs that year as well. Then they come back the next year, and they're kind of up and down, a roller coaster. And then last year, you're dealing with Deshaun Watson suspension, so you're going to from Jacoby Brissett in that aspect, who started for like the first 12 weeks of the season. Then you have Deshaun Watson coming back, and very, very rusty Deshaun Watson. But I think this is a team that is pretty much what I would consider a dark horse. I think this team has a lot of underrated talent. Now, as far as like last year goes, last year was not so much a fluke. It was kind of expected that they were going to be in that particular predicament. But I think this is a team that definitely has a lot of upside, and I think Watson, now with more comfortability around a newish team to him in this aspect. He'll be starting the full season. He'll get acclimated more with his receivers and the running backs, and a really good offensive line, probably one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in the league. And then you're also going to a defense that the last couple of seasons have been very underwhelmed. And this year, I think their defense can definitely pick up the pace a little bit now that they acquired Zadarius Smith from Minnesota. They got themselves a good, decent defensive coordinator that will help a little bit too. So defensively, they have a couple of questions still, but I think Zadarius Smith, Myles Garrett, definitely in that aspect, I think they'll be fine. But as far as like corners and everything like that, is still a bit of a question right there, honestly. But their offense is still fire. I mean, I think Deshaun Watson has some good weapons around him. Like I said, has the best offensive line, probably one of the best offensive lines in the league, at least in the top four, at least. You also got a really good run game with Nick Chubb. You don't have Kareem Hunt anymore, but you don't really need him that well that much if you have Nick Chubb in the backfield and making plays for you there. But this is a team that has really underwhelmed. But this is definitely the year that if Kevin Stefanski wants to stay in this particular environment, if he wants to stay with this team, this is the year that he has to be able to step up and be able to knock off some teams, not only in their division, but as well as their conference as well. So, in that aspect, I think they can make the playoffs. They'll make a dark horse at least. I think they can split with pretty much every team in their division. Maybe the Ravens are probably a bit of a question right there if they can do that, but they usually give the Ravens a run for their money. So I wouldn't be too shocked if that happened. So I think the Browns are definitely, I like their upside a lot. I honestly think they're slightly a better team offensively than the Steelers are. But as far as coaching goes, the edge definitely goes to the Steelers, no question about it. But I think the Browns have more of an upside to them for their future. They have a lot of young players. They have a franchise like quarterback that's going to take this team to, hopefully we'll take them at some point to the promised land. I think the Browns are due for some better days, and I think it's going to start this year when they start out the season, especially when they start out in week one when they have to play Cincinnati, which is a team that, is Cincinnati's kryptonite for the most part, although Cincinnati beat them last year one time. But they still give Cincinnati some problems, and Baltimore and Pittsburgh, not so much as Pittsburgh, but Baltimore and Cincinnati in particular are the teams that the Browns really do give the most hard times to. So I like this team. I think this is a team that's going to bring some upside. I think this is a team that can upset some teams during the season as well. I wouldn't be shocked if they made the playoffs. I really would not be shocked if they made the playoffs because I feel that there are going to be some teams that miss out or fall flat on their face, but I don't think the Browns are going to be one of them. Next, another team that maybe not many people will agree with me on this, but just hear me out on this. The Green Bay Packers. In the beginning, I wasn't exactly sold on Green Bay as far as them having a good year, and I still kind of stand by that. I don't think this is a team that's ready to win anything, especially after losing Aaron Rodgers in the offseason, and then you lose a couple weapons like Alan Lazard, and you miss out on Randall Cobb too, who also went to the Jets. The two of them went to the Jets with Rodgers. So there are some questions there, but I like the future of Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love is going to be pretty similar to what we saw in Brett Favre back in the 90s and the early 2000s, and maybe not quite up to the elite level like Favre and Rodgers were, but I think he's going to be very similar to Favre in terms of like, I think he's going to bring a lot of what some people would call, some upside. I think they have a lot of young talent that maybe not a lot of people really talk about. Christian Watson, for example, who they drafted a couple of years ago in 2022, that definitely can make some really make some noise there. Aaron Jones, who still is in the backfield, splitting time with AJ Dillon. I think you have two solid running backs right there that will definitely improve the run game. I think they'll run the ball a lot more than they've had in years past with Rodgers and Favre. So, and defensively, Jair Alexander is still there. You lose Kenny Clark to Kansas City, but at the end of the day, you still have really good corners. You still have a pretty good linebacker crew. You got Van Ness in the draft, which is going to help you out a lot as far as your edge rusher type of deal goes and your linebacker deal goes. So I think this team could definitely see some upside later on in the season. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. I wouldn't really necessarily consider them like a dark horse, but they're a team that I feel like if they have enough juice in them and if Matt LaFleur can prove everybody wrong and prove to everybody that it wasn't just Rodgers that carried him to those last 4 years to playoffs and success, I think this team could probably do what they can to get themselves back on their feet. Like, I think they'll start out very slow. Jordan Love will need time to develop and be able to understand the offense and everything like that. But after spending 3 years under Rodgers, I think he's ready to go. I think this is his time now. And I think he will have success in this league if he's given the appropriate time to be able to do so. So Green Bay, I think, is a very underrated team that I think teams really need to pay more attention to because they could beat you in any given way. I think they can beat you on defense, or they can beat you on the ground, or they could possibly beat you in the passing game as well too if Love plays up to what we saw from him a little bit from last year. Another team that a lot of people probably will in some ways disagree with me on, and it's the New England Patriots. Now, the Patriots have always been like, for the last 10 to 20 years under Tom Brady, they were always a team that was never really, on paper, really wasn't exactly an underdog because Tom Brady is just that much of a GOAT. But this team is definitely underrated this year because a lot of people want to bash on Juju Smith-Schuster. They want to bash on Bill Belichick. They want to bash on the draft and everything like that. But guys, come on, let's be realistic here, okay? It's the New England Patriots. It's Bill Belichick. It's Gillette Stadium. Like, this team is still very competitive. Like, take a look at what they have on defense. Their defense is still packed, and their defense even got better during the offseason. Now, that doesn't necessarily help them on the offensive side of things. Obviously, an offensive line that's still a little bit suspect, but you can probably pick up a couple pieces during the offseason and maybe in free agency. Like, you can still pick up those kind of players too if you really want to improve in that position. But Mac Jones, man, I mean, a lot of people don't give Mac Jones the credit that he deserves. Like, last year was just a year that was a year to be forgotten about. We'll kind of just throw that one away. Okay. Last season, he didn't have an offensive coordinator, didn't have the proper quarterbacks coach. But this year, he's got the offensive coordinator. He's got a proper coach to coach him up. And I think the Patriots are due for something special. I think they're going to make themselves back into the playoffs. At least they're going to fight for it. They may be the fourth best team in the AFC East on paper, but this is a team, this is still Bill Belichick's team. This is a team that's still going to fight in every which way. They can still give some problems to Miami. They can still give problems to the Jets. They probably could still even sweep the Jets, even with Aaron Rodgers in there. The only team that they probably would have difficulty with is the Buffalo Bills. Maybe they'll be a little bit better matched with them this year because of who they got in the draft and who they picked up during free agency, and even having Gonzalez at corner maybe will help them match up better with the Bills when that time does come for the division title. And I still think they are very well matched for the Dolphins, that I think they could still split with the Dolphins each and every year, especially this year. So there are a lot of upsides to the Patriots. Are also some questions as well. Is Juju Smith-Schuster, is he going to stay healthy? That's probably one of the biggest questions there. And without Damian Harris, who got traded to Buffalo, now you have Ramondre Stevenson carrying the load. Is Ramondre Stevenson going to be ready for that? I think so. I think Ramondre Stevenson is very, very underrated. I think if you look at his stats from last year, you take a look at the games that he played in last year, I thought he at times performed more and more productive than what we saw from Damian Harris. Mac Jones, on the other hand, we know last year was not his most successful year because of Matt Patricia. We already know about that story. His rookie year was the best that we saw with Mac Jones, and I think it's only going to get better from here if you give him the proper coaching, if you give him the play calling, that's going to be better. If you give him more weapons around him, if you give him more time to throw the ball, because we know he's a pocket passer, he's not very mobile outside of the pocket, but he's very good, and he's probably one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league right now, and that's not exaggerating. Guys, if you compare from his rookie year and you compare the last year, you can see and you can tell how accurate this quarterback really is. And I think this is the upcoming of a new era of what we'll see in New England. So I think the Patriots are underrated. I think they're a team to still be looking out for. I would not underestimate them whatsoever. So the Patriots are my team. Next team, we talked about them a little bit, the Saints. The New Orleans Saints acquired Derek Carr in the offseason. Okay. For the last couple of years after Drew Brees, they went from Jameis Winston to Taysom Hill. And at the end of the year, that year after Drew Brees retired, they went to, I think his name is Ian Book or something like that. They went to a guy that never took an NFL snap until one game. Then you go from Jameis Winston, then you bench him, then you go to Andy Dalton. So you're also in a quarterback situation. Derek Carr is a quarterback that not enough people give enough respect to. Okay. Now, his 9 years in Vegas/Oakland, okay, his years there, he's had a very up and down years when he was in the Raiders. However, he made their team more and more relevant every year that he was out there. He made the team look more competitive than they actually are. And he overcame so much with the Raiders that he always put up impressive stats every single year. Last year, under the Josh McDaniels offensive playbook, didn't exactly work out the way that Raiders fans wanted. Not exactly the way I wanted it either, because I'm a big Derek Carr fan. I like Derek Carr a lot. And, and at that point, if you're not really settling well with an offensive minded genius like Josh McDaniels, if you don't settle into his offense very well, that's hard for quarterbacks to not be able to. Like Tom Brady has had a lot of success with him, and so has Mac Jones before, up until he left. So, so we can't, how much can you really blame of Carr for last year's disaster? Like, I don't think you should really blame much of him at all. Yeah, last year his stats weren't impressive. Last year he didn't look exactly the Derek Carr that we've seen in years past. Maybe this will be a change of scenery for him. I think he's going to have a much better defense. He'll probably have the best defense that he's ever had in his career. That's no exaggeration there. I think he's also got talent for this team as well. He also got Foster Moreau to come over to this team, which will definitely be a familiar face to him. And I think you'll see a lot more targets with Foster Moreau and Derek Carr happen this season. But he also has a lot of weapons around him too. Like you take a look at Chris Olave, who had a very nice rookie season last year, probably one of the best rookie receivers that not enough people really talk about from last year. Michael Thomas is still in question, but I think he's still part of the team. Then you have Alvin Kamara, who's I think will have a bounce back year this year if he's not suspended. You have a pretty decent offensive line. You still have Taysom Hill at the helm. And then you have a nice solid defense. Like the defense may be older, like Cam Jordan, for example, maybe a little bit older, and Marshawn Lattimore. Like there might be some older players on this team, but they're still pretty darn good. Okay. Coaching may be the biggest question here. I don't know how much better Dennis Allen is for Carr than Josh McDaniel is, but I think he'll be better. I think if you put Carr in a good situation, which I think he's in a pretty good situation for the most part, and he's in a pretty winnable division. Like I think the Saints are probably the best team in the NFC South, and that's not saying much. But I still think this team can definitely be competitive. Like their defense is still very good. That gives a lot of teams a lot of problems, especially the Bucks. So I think this team will still be relevant. I think they're going to be pretty good. And I just would not underestimate Derek Carr. I think we could probably see the best version of Derek Carr this year if everything goes the way that it's supposed to go. Next, you got the New York Giants. Now, maybe a little bit of bias here because I'm a Giants fan. Yeah, I understand all that. But guys, I mean, take a look at last year, okay? 9-7-1. That was pretty impressive for the Giants. Now, a lot of that didn't come from really the players because the players weren't exactly the most elite except for Saquon Barkley. Now, Daniel Jones, a lot of people want to, especially Giants fans, they want to praise Daniel Jones for the success that they had last year. But really, in all reality, when you take a look at his stats, you take a look at the games, and you watch some of the highlights from last season, I'm sorry to say it, but Daniel Jones really wasn't that impressive last year. Like, it was the most conservative Daniel Jones that we have ever seen of him since he's entered into the league. And it's all because of their coach in Brian Dable. Brian Dable, who I would probably consider a similar version, maybe a junior version of Mike Vrabel. But he turned this team to be something out of nothing pretty much. Like he helped this team get through so many wins last year. It's not even funny. Like for example, like Jones, we know how he can be, how flashy he can be with the football. We understand that he's also prone to making mistakes, but when you take a look at the film from last year, it was a very conservative play call, and that worked under Jones very well. That other coaches could not figure out with Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones is a system quarterback. He only works in a very specific system that's going to help him be successful. And they kept him very conservative and did not have a lot of help on the offensive line, did not have a lot of help in the receiving core. So he had to rely on throwing on the flat. He had to rely for Saquon to make a big run. So basically, that's really what it was last year, and they worked around that very well, and they were able to get themselves to the playoffs. Now, Jones has some more help now. The offensive line should be better. If Saquon gets his contract thing situated before the season starts, he'll also be back in there and will definitely play very well. And then you have the acquisition of Darren Waller, another weapon that can definitely help Jones out for sure. Then you also have Paris Campbell, who, in my opinion, is solid. He's good, but he's not electrifying. He's not elite. He's not a game changer. But I think he'll be something that will help out Jones a little bit in the passing game. And then Sterling Shepard pretty much. And then that's really it. And then you have a good defense. You still have a pretty good defense. Your pass rush probably isn't as good as it used to be. But you still have some decent secondary that can probably make some noise there. So I think this team could definitely be similar to what they were last year. And I kind of want to see what Jones can do now that he has some weapons and some veterans in there that has been in the game for some time. And if Jones can be able to do that, maybe I can change my mind about Jones. But until I can see that he is more than capable of leading this team to the playoffs without, any turnover worthy stuff, or if he can push the ball down further without being reckless with it, maybe my opinions will change on Jones. But I still think this team can make the playoffs in a very, very weak NFC. And I think they're still going to be, I think they're going to be very competitive because of coaching. And when you talk about one New York team, you got to talk about the other New York team, and that is the Jets is the other team that we're talking about here. The New York Jets after the Giants. Now the Jets also in some ways could be very overrated. Not going to lie to you right there. They could also be very overrated because everybody wants to overhype on Aaron Rodgers, and I get that. I kind of change my mind about this team every day. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I think this on paper, this is probably one of the best teams that the Jets have had in forever. But I do have my questions about them. And I think a lot of it is kind of like really related to Aaron Rodgers in a sense, but also in terms of coaching too, and in terms of play calling too with Nathaniel Hackett. I don't question Robert Saleh as much as some other people's do, and maybe even Jets fans do. Because I kind of think he is a very underrated coach. He's not like elite. He's not electrifying or game changing. He did have some very questionable calls from last year and how he managed some of the games. But I don't think he's as bad as people want to make it out to be. And I think if the Jets make the playoffs this year, he stays another year at least. So, my questions kind of do concern about that in terms of coaching. Offensive line, I have questions about too. I'm still very concerned. I don't think they're still that good. Their defense will be top 5 this year, no question about it. Their defense is probably one of the best in the NFL. They have a lot of young talent offensively. Brees Young, when he comes back healthy, and if he starts in week 1, I think he's going to be pretty darn good. I really do think so. And then you've got Alan Lazard, wide receiver. You have Garrett Wilson. You've got not Elijah Moore. You have Randall Cobb, who's also familiar with Rodgers. You have CJ Usama. You also have, you have a lot of weapons. You have a lot of help. You have some pretty good offensive firepower. Now, as far as like Rodgers goes, now last year wasn't exactly Rodgers' best year last year, and I will agree with that. It wasn't really very pretty for him last year. But at the same time, I mean, I like what they have. I think they can be competitive here. I like defensively. I think they can keep themselves in a lot of games. Hackett, as far as play calling goes, questionable there because we saw what happened in Denver. But I don't think Aaron Rodgers is a Russell Wilson. I don't think he can be any worse than Russell Wilson was. But I think that this team will definitely be underrated. I think they'll be very competitive. I think they'll definitely keep themselves afloat. They definitely can make themselves noticeable when it comes to playoff time. Now, I think they really can upset some teams in the playoffs. Like there are some teams on their schedule that they have to go through a very tough schedule in the beginning half of the season. So that will definitely play a big factor there. And if they can win as many games in that first half of the season, this team will make it to the playoffs. So the Jets are my other team that I definitely would look out for the Jets and be able to prepare for their defense. All right, another team here probably won't take as much time with them because they're also at the same time a little overrated too. But I also think they're a team you definitely can't underestimate because Mike Tomlin and everything like that. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Now the Pittsburgh Steelers always seem to, no matter who is that quarterback and no matter what kind of talent they have, they always seem to pull it off every single year. They always seem to pull it off to be above 500 and just miss the playoffs or make the playoffs. Kenny Pickett, I think, is the future for the team. I think he looked pretty solid the last half of the season last year, last quarter at least. They have some pretty underrated players. I like some of the receivers that they do have, like Deontay Johnson. I like George Pickens. I think can be something special for them in the future. I like that Pickett to Pickens. I like that connection right there. So I think that will be something to look forward to in the future. Running back position, Najee Harris, I think will be solid. Should be better. But I also have questions about that though too, because last season wasn't exactly the season that we thought we were going to see from Harris. And offensive line is better, should be better at least, and then defensively, they're still a top 5 unit or higher. No questions right there. But at the same time, I don't know if they're better or if they're worse than the Cleveland Browns. I think they're kind of right around the same way, but I probably aim towards the Browns being a little bit more talented in terms of roster wise. but in terms of coaching, it goes to the Steelers. I give them the edge there. But I think this team still will find ways to win games. They'll still find ways to beat the Ravens like they do every year. They'll find ways to beat the Bengals like they do every year, and the Browns, and pull off some of these crazy upsets that probably no one has ever thought would ever come to life, which is something that the Steelers football usually is. So I think they're a team that's underrated. I think they're a team that you probably really should be looking onto and being able to keep, in the back of your minds moving forward in the future. But I think they're underrated. I think they'll be a solid enough team that will get you some wins when they really need to and push the ball down the field when they really need to. But they're not exactly a team that I feel like is probably one of the most underrated teams, but I put them here because they're still a team that, in terms of coaching, will definitely have a lot of firepower. And then the last team I do have here is the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Titans roster is not very good whatsoever, but coaching really does make the biggest factor here. I think their coaching is what makes this team so relevant. Mike Vrabel, for example, a top five maybe coaching, maybe a little bit lower than that. I don't know if he's exactly top five, but close to at least elite at least. Okay. The Titans last year did not have any offensive weapons for Ryan Tannehill whatsoever. The offensive line was horrific last year, and I think it's still going to be worse. I think the team might be a little bit worse than they were last year, but they're still going to be very competitive. Like, I wouldn't sleep on the Titans, and I would not sleep on Derrick Henry either. Right now, it does not sound like Henry is being traded anywhere. So as long as Henry is still there and Ryan Tannehill is still making some plays with the amount of weapons that he does have left there, Traylon Burks, it's pretty much it, really. This team will still be competitive. They'll still be relevant, and they'll still be a team that many teams will not want to face in the regular season, because that's just how this team really is. You never really know about the Titans. You don't know which team of the Titans you're going to see. And the defense is still very solid. They're still a top 15, maybe top 10 unit, especially when it comes to safety there. And you still have Kevin Byard, who is probably one of the best, if not the best safety in the NFL. No question about it. So you have a lot of talent. You have talent on defense. You're lacking talent on offense. So your overall roster is below average, but they're still going to be competitive. And you have to think the coaching is going to make that big difference there. So the Titans will definitely be an underrated team. They'll be a team that I definitely, if I were you, I would not sleep on. And there you have it for my most underrated teams in the NFL for the 2023 NFL season. So thank you all for tuning in once again. This is your boy James telling you one more time to please do me the favor and please drop a like on this video if you have not done so already, as I pull up the graphic right here. There you go. Drop a like on this video and leave a comment down below if you have not done so already. Also, be sure to also hit that subscribe button as well underneath this video, and be sure to hit the notification bell so that way you can be notified at every single time that I go live. So with all that being said, everybody, this is your boy JP Football Fanatics saying thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.